My guest today is Canute D'costa, the founder of Big Momma's Kitchen. He's a survivor of clinical depression, psychiatric disorder, and suicidal tendencies. Hey man, welcome to the show.
Hey Pratham, what's up? How are you?
I'm good man, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So, what are you up to nowadays?
Nowadays, I'm basically working for a company called Brandman. So
Okay.
I'm an accounts manager there and I take care of business development and marketing for the firm. It's just going on here and there.
Okay, and how's your cloud kitchen doing?
The cloud kitchen is doing well. We serve on a pre-order basis now instead of daily service because it works out better. Since lockdown came in, it took a big impact. So yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to go straight into it then.
Sure, go ahead.
When did it start? How did it happen?
So I can say I've been living with depression from quite a long time. You know how it's like someone comes and asks you, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. And that's for people who probably don't have issues. They say, I'm fine. It's like a social thing to say. That's how society works. For me, saying fine was probably deflecting a question. It was like, I'd just say I'm fine just to avoid a conversation with the person. And that's how it would just go about. And eventually, it kept getting worse. If I look at it from the time I was in PUC, I used to feel like a lonely person, or I'd feel like I'm not good enough, or I'd feel like, okay, nothing's going my way, I don't want this anymore, and all that. So yeah, I can probably say I've been living with depression for most of my teenage life and my adult life, all of my adult life actually.
Okay. And you said that your default answer was I'm fine to how are you.
Yes.
But what did you actually want to say?
At that point I wouldn't want to say anything. Back then it really didn't matter about saying anything to people. I just want to say I'm fine and walk away. But now if you look at it, I'd rather want to talk to a person about how I feel. Depending if that person is ready to listen to whatever I'm going to talk about. So yeah. It's like all these years of saying I'm fine to everyone, basically, clubbed up and one day just blew up.
So
yeah.
During your teenage, you were around people and you still felt lonely, right?
I was around people, yes, and I still felt lonely. So that's what happens. You just get good at, being normal around people, though you're not fine. Because you get so good at pretending to be someone you're not. People will just think, okay, that's who you are.
And how did it explode into something worse?
So I can say, somewhere around 2 years ago, 2 years ago, it started getting bad. So I couldn't process. It's like, imagine you're driving a car and someone cuts you off. And at that point, you're so angry, your perception changes. You're ready to, roll down your windows and shout and yell at that guy. And that guy probably drives off, and after a while you're like, okay, what was I thinking? He's just gone, it's fine. Okay, and you basically come out of that thought. But imagine never coming out of that thought. You're just stuck there. You can't move out at all. You're stuck in one void that is not healthy for you. You will probably be thinking like, okay, what's happening here? What's going on? You can't process. You turn extremely sluggish. You turn lazy. And every morning I'd wake up, and the minute I saw sunlight in my eyes, I'd be like, no, this is not happening. Why did I wake up? Why did I see sunlight in my eyes? I just don't want this anymore.
You wanted to just end your life?
Yes, I did want to end my life. It was a thing that used to constantly keep going around in my head. I think back in 2017 was the first time I tried ending my life. Not 2017 actually, if you look at it, 2016 or 17.
Okay.
So yeah.
How did your first attempt go by?
First attempt, I went to jump off the rocks near Bengre beach, near Tanir Bavi. So it's like a pile of rocks that's, kept there to avoid the waves from destroying the property around. So, and it's pretty hard, the impact. So that's when I thought I'd just go jump off. And by then my friends were there and they talked me out of it. And I went back home.
Did they realize that this was a suicide attempt?
They knew about it. Because I did message 3 of my friends saying, please tell everyone I'm sorry, goodbye.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was you who was texting them or someone else?
No, at this point it was just me. This was in the very, very early stages of everything that was happening.
And when did you feel like someone else was taking over your body?
So this, I could say, started off slowly. So eventually, I'd sit alone in a room. I wouldn't interact with many people. I casually started having conversations with someone else in my head. and eventually that someone else started developing. And I did not like that someone else, so I started creating another person in my head, another personality who I started talking to again. And it just went on, so eventually I ended up creating 4 different people. And every day I just sit there in my room and have conversations with 4 of these. It would make me feel good in one way. But after a while, it felt like these personalities kept getting stronger. And I was being pushed back. So it kept getting worse. Okay, then I started getting really bad headaches. I couldn't move. I couldn't think about things. I couldn't process anything at all. I was basically a dead person. And this was I started medication, but I had not revealed about the problem I was going to. I started medication for depression and anxiety.
Okay.
So yes, I did start medication for depression and anxiety. I was on that, but this started getting worse. And one day, actually, when I was on my way for my psychiatric appointment, on the way back from my psychiatric appointment, and this was one more day where I did not disclose it either. So I'm just riding from Falni to Milagros, and suddenly I'm pushed back into the back seat, and I'm like, okay, back seat of my head. So I can just see things that are happening, and I couldn't really, take control of anything that was happening. And there's a voice saying, "You sit back, it's time for me to take over." I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is my body. Please let me go." And I just kept fighting, and next minute I'm blank. And when I come back into my senses, I'm in Valencia standing off my scooter and just looking up. And I have no memory of what happened.
So from Milagros to Valencia, you physically moved from Milagros to Valencia.
Yes, I did. And I was riding.
Okay, but you don't have the memory of physically moving
Nothing.
there. It's just gone.
Yes, and eventually after that, I started having a lot of time gaps in my day, like probably an hour or 2.
So your memories would just get wiped off.
Yeah, I would have no memory of anything that happened in certain time gaps.
Did you feel like someone else was taking over your body?
That's what, I'd be blank.
Okay.
Eventually, at the beginning, so this was on the later on stages, right? So at the beginning, I would know when someone was taking over my body. Like, I'd be conscious of it because I'd be seeing things. Here, I'd just be blank. I'd just disappear. And before that, I could at least be a spectator. And it wasn't very pleasant because I've terrified a lot of people. And I wouldn't even say that it was me who terrified it. Probably someone else who was in my head. And, for example, once my mom was talking to me and I was just there. I could see everything that's happening. And this person's yelling at my mom. And my mom was like, "Who are you? Like, why are you talking like this? What's wrong with you?" And all that. Just let me go. I shut the door, and I start breaking everything that's around. I start hitting everything that's around. And next minute, I just wake up. So, yeah, that's how it just went about.
How did psychiatric treatment help you?
So, initially, see, me personally, I do not really believe in medication because I don't think medication helped me in any way. I started going for therapy. So I started therapy after my final suicidal attempt. So before going to my final suicidal attempt, I'll just, tell you about. I at least had a total of 5 proper suicide attempts. And between, I did try walking into the sea and just being pushed back by the waves. So yeah. The first time I went and crashed my car.
This was the second suicide attempt.
This was the first one.
This is the first one, okay.
Sorry, the first one was back in,
okay.
yes. So this is the first one in the recent years. Like, I had a series of 5 suicide attempts within a year's time. So in this year, in this span, the first one was I went and crashed my car.
Okay, how did it go about?
So I was driving and my friends were actually waiting for me. And I was on a little bit of alcohol. And I'm just driving and next minute I call my friends. I'm like, "Okay, look at me, zoom past and you're not going to see me come." Okay. So that's what I just told them. And the next minute I reached that place. I pulled my handbrakes. I was probably at 140. The car spins. It hits a divider. It flips onto the other side of the road. And for some reason I was intact and the car didn't have a single scratch on its body. The car's axle was broken underneath on the rear wheels, but the car, and other than that, there was an airbag that came out on the passenger side. But the airbag on my side didn't deploy. and for the pressure, the airbag blew up on the passenger side. The windshield exploded, like cracked up, open. So yeah, then I drove my car back to where my friends were with the broken axle, just dragged it on two wheels, and they're waiting. They're like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm done. I can't take this anymore." And after that, there's these random people who come there. I don't know who they were. They come there, and in Tulu they're like, "Yeah, Beversi, Panle Yank. Like, who's that bastard? Come, tell me who he is." And they wanted to beat me up because I tried killing myself.
That's
Yeah.
fucking stupid.
Yeah. So that was actually very funny. And there's this other elderly person who comes there, and he's like, I think you guys can see he's already upset and he's not in his right state of mind, and you guys are making it worse for him. Do you want to be, the people responsible for his death now? And those guys were also very furious, and they just wanted to beat me up. I don't know for what joy. And then my friend spoke to them and everything, and they dropped me home. So yeah. Then the second time, I was home alone, and I just go put my head in a bucket of water.
What was the time span between the first attempt?
The
between
first
the car and
attempt, the first attempt and the second attempt, I think it was a time span of 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months. And after the first attempt, how did your parents react?
They were pretty disturbed with what happened, and they thought Bangalore wouldn't be a great place for me. And I told them I need to move out of the city, so I moved back to Bangalore. I was in Bangalore, so I moved back to Bangalore, tried finding a job there, but didn't work out, so I came back. And I don't know. So imagine, like, it was, what do you say? Every day was, I'd go to sleep every day thinking, okay, I hope I have a heart attack and I don't open my eyes. I hope I have cancer and I do not, like, see the world again. I think those are the kinds of things I used to pray for the most. Just for things that would probably end my life in various ways.
Do you have any awareness of what the source of your depression is?
I could never say what the source of my depression is. Basically, I think I was never happy with myself. It is very hard to be happy. I just find it extremely difficult to be happy with myself. I try to find happiness in external factors. So yeah, that's one way I could describe it. And then yeah, moving on to the second attempt was when I just put my head in a bucket of water and I inhaled water, and no one was at home. And I think I was probably out for 20 minutes to half an hour, after which I woke up and I started spitting out a lot of water and puking out a lot of water. And I was perfectly fine again.
And no one got to know about this?
No one knew about this. I think this is the first time people are knowing about it. So, yeah.
And were you acting normal right after this whole bucket incident?
Everything was normal. That's what I told earlier, right? Like, I was so good at pretending like nothing ever happened in my life. People would just think I'm a normal person. People would not even know, like, this guy is probably facing depression, is going through things in his life. Because I was just able to, compose myself in public and just be as it is.
Did you also have friends who were depressed or suicidal?
Yes, I did have a lot of friends, and that was the funny part. Me being a depressed person, I would be there to talk to them all the time. I'd be there. I've had friends who've called me saying I feel like killing myself. Then I talk to them for hours, and I'd be like, okay, and they'd feel better. I wouldn't be there as a professional help person. I'd be there as a friend talking to them. I am not certified to help them professionally, but I'd just be a friend who would be there to talk. And yeah, I'd be there. I'd talk to them for like months together or weeks together. So they were out of it. But the thing about it is, every time I helped a person, there was this boost of adrenaline. There was this happiness that I'd get within. So helping someone else used to actually make me feel happy. So at this time when I was depressed, I'd help someone. I'd be happy for a day or two, and then I just jump back into my hole. So that's how it go about.
Okay. And after your second attempt, did the depression get any better or worse, or
just kept getting worse. It kept getting really bad.
And at the same time, were you on your psychiatric medication? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Because I didn't see it helping me in any way.
Okay.
So yeah. So then I moved on to my third attempt. That was, I read where you could, if a human being drank too much water, it would basically kill the person. So I drank like 5 to 6 liters of water in an hour. After which I had a pounding headache and I went to sleep. And I thought finally, yes, this is my time. I'm going to go, and I went to sleep. And I didn't want to wake up. And I wake up. I'm like, oh God, here I am again.
How did you manage to drink 5 to 6 liters in an hour?
I just kept drinking. In an hour, I just kept, like 5 minutes. I just kept sipping on water. I slowly kept sipping on water. And I gave like tiny breaks in between. But I managed to drink a lot of water.
That's such a slow and painful way to die. Why would you put yourself through that?
I don't know. I just wanted to, end everything that was going on. I couldn't think of anything else. So when I would think of suicide, right, it wouldn't be me. Now imagine I was thinking of killing myself. So if you look at suicide, it's not like a sudden decision. It's probably years of trauma that's bottled up, and that probably leads you to end it. So people usually, when it's suicide, people usually think, okay, this happened, that's why he killed himself. No, but that person was probably going through something, and that years of trauma just bottled up, and done. He just ends his life there.
So in your third attempt, you were taking 5 to 6 liters of water a day.
Yeah.
And did that cause
In an hour.
Okay, in an hour. Sorry,
Yeah.
in an hour. Did that cause a lot of pain to you?
The headache was terrible. I have had migraines, like severe migraines, and trust me, there was no headache comparable to that. I felt like my head was going to explode.
Okay. And was anyone made aware of this attempt? No. And you survived that as well.
Yes.
How did you go about after that?
In between, there were times, that's what I was saying, I walked into the sea and just got thrown back by the waves. Those are like not even proper suicide attempts. I just thought I'll walk and see what happens. I didn't want to come back, but I just kept getting tossed back by the waves. Then my fourth actual suicide attempt, that was, I actually have the recorded date, that's on September 24th, 2019. I swallowed 90 paracetamols.
How did you...
So yeah, it was sort of a funny story. I swallowed 90.
How did you buy 90 paracetamol?
So I knew each paracetamol strip had 15 tablets.
Okay.
So just to make sure the medical shops didn't get really curious about why I was buying so many, I went to 3 different medical shops. I bought 2 strips from each.
Okay.
So I had like 6 strips. And yeah, I swallowed all of them. I took like a handful, swallowed, drank water. And I just waited.
Did you do any research on paracetamol before that, or you just thought, okay, you know what, if I have 90...
No, I've heard a lot of people kill themselves that way, so I didn't do any research. I heard and I tried it out.
Okay. And you survived that as well?
Yeah, so this is the funny part, like, I was perfectly fine, but in the next 24 hours, I started feeling a little drowsy.
Okay.
And then after that, the next 24 hours, I was fine. And there was nothing, there was no symptoms. I don't know how my insides were, but I was perfectly, active physically. So I was perfectly fine. There's no issues going on.
Did you talk about this to anyone that you took 90?
This was after my final suicide attempt, yes. People knew I took 2 rounds of paracetamol.
Okay, so there was another...
Yes, that was exactly a month apart again, October 23rd or 24th. I took another round.
Another round of 90 paracetamols.
Yes.
And what was the result of that?
I'll tell you. So I had a friend's birthday party, and I took around 90 paracetamols again, right? I wasn't drinking for a year and a half during that time. So I just go there, I chill at the party, I have a pineapple juice, and next minute I want to throw up. I go to the bathroom, I start throwing up, and I start feeling sick. And I could taste like paracetamol in my mouth when I was throwing up. I go out, I tell my friends, see, I'm feeling a little sick. I'm just going to go sleep in the car for a while. You guys can come out when you're done. And they're like, cool. They're like, you want to go home? I'm like, no, I'll wait. You guys finish up. So I was chilling in the car. Then they come. I drop them home and I go back home. And the entire night I was throwing up. I was throwing up a lot. And the next day after which I consumed the paracetamol was my first therapy session with a therapist and a healer. So yeah, I go there. I sit there and she looks at me and she's like, what do you take? First we had a random conversation, and after that she's like, what do you take? I was like, nothing. Like, tell me what you took. I was like, nothing.
Okay, so just through the conversation she got to know that you consumed some kind of poison.
No, the conversation was very random. I don't think anyone would have found out I've taken anything, because my mom was beside me. I don't think she found out I'd taken anything either.
Okay.
So yeah. So the entire night I was throwing up. By morning I was fine. I didn't feel like throwing up much again. So I go there, and after that, she keeps asking me what I take. I was like, nothing. And then suddenly I feel like throwing up again. Then she takes me out in the compound, and I don't know, she just starts rubbing my back in a different direction. And then she holds my chest up and she squeezes it, and I start throwing up a lot. I throw up a lot, and I go to Father Muller's, and they're like, what happened? I'm like, I'm feeling sick, I've been throwing up. They're like, did you take anything? I'm like, nothing. And they give me an injection and they send me off. I'm like, cool, I'm fine. I go for a farmhouse party with my friends after that again. I go there, we're having a barbecue and everything. Again, I was not drinking. Suddenly in the middle of the night, I start feeling sick again. And I feel really sick. Next morning we leave, we come back to Mangalore. I think by afternoon we were in Mangalore. Then at night my mom comes and asks me, tell me what happened, what did you take? Well, I haven't taken anything. Then she calls my therapist, and the therapist talks to me on the phone, and she's like, okay, what do you take, son? Tell me. And then finally I gave up and I told her what I took. And then she told my parents, see, this could be a police case. It could be a report. So go to the hospital, don't worry. It's nothing to worry about. Just go to the hospital and let him tell them what he's taken. So I went to the hospital and I told them I took paracetamols. They're like, how many? And I did not want to tell these people how many. I was like, probably 30 or 40. I knew how many paracetamols I took exactly. So they're like, okay, fine. And they get some tests done and immediately shift me to the ICCU. And I'm just throwing up in the ICCU the entire night. And I was throwing up weird bubbles, like huge bubbles. And they were yellow weird bubbles that wouldn't even blow up. I don't know what kind of bubbles those were. So, yeah. And I have no idea about what's going on. I'm just there in the ICCU sitting. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't die. And now I have to answer to my parents about what I did and all that. And I can't think about it. And suddenly one doctor is doing a scan. And he looks at the other doctor and whispers, dude, this guy's liver's jelly. And I hear him and I'm like, oh shit, my liver's jelly, I'm gone.
At that moment, did you badly want to die?
Dude, at that minute, I was like, okay, if my liver's jelly, I think I'd rather just die.
Okay.
And the next day, a priest comes and we have a sacrament called the anointing of the sick, and he anoints me on my bed. And this time I know, okay, shit, I'm going to die.
Okay, speaking of priests, okay, you had also told me that there was an exorcism.
Oh yes,
okay.
This
was much earlier.
This was during my. This is when I was diagnosed with dissociative personality disorder.
What is that?
So that's basically I had multiple personalities, right?
Okay.
So this was when people started freaking out, saying, "Okay, this guy's not right. He's a crazy guy." And then my parents started getting really worried, and they're like, "Okay, something's not right." And I don't blame them because. You know how movies show you a person being possessed?
Yes.
That's how my personality disorder was. It looked like I'm possessed by something.
Okay.
I'd be a completely different thing. My voice would be different. My strength would be different. It'd be a lot of different things. So like when I had 4 personalities, and when one of them took over, my eyesight was like, it was back to normal. I didn't need glasses to see. Like, I didn't need my glasses to see, and I was like, shit, this is a superpower. It feels good. In the back of my head, it feels good because I'm just a backseat passenger seeing what's happening because there's someone else in my body right now. And it for me, at a moment, it felt good. I'm like, okay, after I was back in my senses or back to being myself, I was like, okay, if I can get my eyesight fixed this way, I think it'd be great. I think that's one of the ways I started letting people in, like, take control of me because... there was a certain personality which took over. I had strength I never knew. I was able to fight people off, and during this time I was extremely sensitive. My emotions were out of control, and anything could trigger me and tick me off. So I did get into a fight once, and I actually managed to take down 4 or 5 people, which I never thought I'd be able to do, and that was pretty scary. And I don't know what to say. It was actually really terrifying, and people who saw me, they were pretty shocked because my entire face expression was something else. I don't know what I look like.
So that was not you, that was someone else?
That was someone else, and I was just there sitting in the back seat saying, stop, please stop, you're killing that guy. So yeah, it just kept going, and then I'd have a personality which was always sad and be crying, and I'd be crying 24/7, be crying 24/7, and someone's telling that person not to cry, and I'm just sitting there watching. I'm like, I'm not crying. I'm just sitting here. That's someone else crying.
Did you ever tell your characters to just shut up?
That I'll get to that later. I'll tell you how it worked for me. So yeah, getting back to the exorcism.
Okay.
You know how, that's how I told you, right? You are completely different, and you know how movies and stereotypical things, generic things have basically led people to believe certain stuff. And I was taken to a priest for exorcism. I didn't know it was an exorcism. They said, this priest offers counseling. I go there. Nobody knew what was an exorcism. So I go there, and the priest talks to me for a while, and I tell him what's happening, because I thought he was a counselor. I just sit there and I talk. Then he takes me out in the room, and there are like two people there. My parents are there. And then he asks me to kneel down. He pushes my head back, and he starts calling on the Holy Spirit upon me and say, take this devil out, chase this devil out of the body, chase Satan out of this body, and all that stuff. And he's deliberately trying to push my head back like this, and I'm trying to fight it, like push it in front. And I'm like, this is not working, dude, please stop. In my head, I'm like, I just didn't want to say anything. But in my head, I'm like, stop. Why are you pushing my head? Like, come on, this hurts. One point I gave up, and I just let my head go back that way. And then after that, he stops. He's like, I think you feel better now. I'm like, no, I feel the same. Okay, I feel no changes at all. So he's like, then he looks at my parents. I think he needs to come back again. And after which, I told a few people about this scenario, and they gave me a few funny ideas. And I was actually ready. I thought, okay, next time I go there, I'm going to prank the priest.
How would you prank the priest?
The next time this were a few ideas compiled by a lot of people, and I thought I'll actually do this. So I go there, I kneel down, the priest starts doing the same thing again. I start screaming, Satan, Satan, 66666, and I start running out of the house full speed. And I would not go back there, and the priest would be like, shit, I let a monster on the loose. I was like, cool.
And
dude,
did you carry out this prank, or did you give up?
Who, me? No, I didn't. I never went back there again.
Okay.
So yeah. Then yeah, going back to me being in the hospital. So
Okay.
anointing. He anoints me and stuff. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna die. I was pretty happy about the thought. And the next, I had a feeling something's wrong, because I was in the ICCU, and there was only two visitor shifts that were allowed, like 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. Morning, my mom and dad walked in, but there was only one visitor that was allowed, but they let in two, and they're very strict about it. They let in two people come in. And the afternoon, my aunt walks in, and everyone seems upset, and I know something's not right. And the next day, the next day my cousin comes in, and he's like, dude, you're lucky to live. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you don't know. I'm like, no, I don't know. Then he tells me that my liver count, which was supposed to be 45, LFT or RFT something, it was supposed to be 35 or 45, it was 7,000. And the doctors basically told them, see, there's no chance of survival, and the only probable thing is a liver transplant, which is not a guaranteed thing as of now. And that's when all my friends lost their shit, and they started contacting every possible contact they have to get a new liver, to get in funds and everything. So yeah. And after that, the day I would have been taken for a transplant was the day my count has come down to 3,500, and the doctors were shocked. They're like, how can that happen? They're like, that guy basically didn't have a proper liver, and how is his count coming down so fast? And they're calling it a medical marvel. They're calling it a miracle.
Do you think it was a miracle?
I don't know. I've tried killing myself so many times, and here I am. So I don't know what to say. It could have been. So yeah, it just keeps happening. So when I realized I'm going to survive was one more thing. Now people know that I've tried killing myself. And I found out that news has spread in Bangalore so fast, saying that within 15-20 minutes of me being in the hospital, people have found out Canute's done this, and Canute's in the hospital, and Canute's serious. There were rumors that I died. There were rumors that, okay, this guy's not going to survive, which was true, but everyone, okay, that the news went out, and I don't know from where people started creating their own version of their stories. Like, this guy tried killing himself for that. This guy tried killing himself for this. This guy tried killing himself for this again. It was very weird.
And you had to face them.
I had to face that. Now, this was my biggest challenge.
Okay, so
This was coming out into public.
You were less scared of dying, and you were more scared of these
Facing
people judging
yes.
you. Okay.
I was like, shit, I can't do this. This is going to be really hard. So, okay, I was out of the ICCU in 4 days. And within 14 days, I was out of the hospital. After which, I didn't actually go out into public much. I was staying home. I think after a few months, I went out. And there were so many people who would come to me. They're like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you fine? Are you happy with yourself? And all that stuff. And then people would start giving me, ways to fight depression. They'd be like, okay, why don't you start working out? You'll feel good. And I'm still suffering from depression. Okay, I've tried killing myself. I've come out. Okay, I'm still thinking why I didn't die. But yeah, and I'm still thinking. I'm like, fuck. I do not want to be here, and I'm just very. I don't know what to say. I just didn't want to be there at all. And after that, these people come over and they're like, start working out, you'll feel better. Start doing this, you'll feel better. I'm like, I can't work out. And
were you nice to them, or did you tell them
directly
on their face?
I was very nice to them. I was like, I can't work out, I'm sorry. So I'll just give you an example of how it works. So basically, when you're depressed, your body weight feels a lot more heavier. It feels extremely heavy. And when I was working out, this is what my mind would be. This is exactly what it would be. I couldn't work out. My mind was just crushed and crumpled. They're like, okay, go for a walk. I'm walking. I go for a walk. I start walking, and next minute I know, oh, shit. I'm trying to think of other ways to kill myself. It was really hard to get through after that. Yeah. And then eventually I started going for therapy. It started helping me. I wouldn't say I'm not a depressed person anymore. I still have depression. I mean, it's not that bad. I know how to, live with it. So, yeah. How
did what did they do in this therapy that helped you?
They had a lot of I don't know, things that they did. I mean, she did. So there was hypnosis, there was regression, there was a lot of things. So once I was asked to lie down, and I was asked to do a certain kind of breathing and imagine some light coming over me, and the light filling up my body. And eventually she asked me, where would you like to be? I was like, yes, I'd love to be by a place where there's a waterfall and greenery and all that. Okay, start imagining the waterfall. And she keeps talking and talking. And at one point she's like, do not struggle now, because you can't move your body. And I actually start trying to move my body. She's like, don't struggle, you can't move your body. And next minute, I know she's taken me back years, like locked memories, my subconscious memories, everything, they've been unlocked. And I could remember things. I saw things which I thought I'd never remember again. Like all these locked out memories, like just came out. And it was actually pretty amazing. It was one amazing experience. It was mad.
Can you give an example of one of the memory that you recovered?
So, okay, if you want to speak in terms of depression, there was this one memory that came up. Ever since I was a kid, I was taken back into this memory that came up. I was taken back to a time where I was 7 years old or something. And I would have this thing where I'd just tie a noose around my neck with a blanket and I just hold it up and I'd be like, I'm dead. And I'd just laugh about it. And it would make me feel happy. Pretending to die would make me feel happy. And that was probably one of the signs that, that started from an early age. And also when I was a kid, I'd be a happy kid. Yeah, I'd always be smiling and stuff. But when I was alone, I'd feel like crying all the time. And those are some of the memories that came out. And I was like, okay, shit, I couldn't even remember these things. How do I start to remember this now?
So that's how powerful her hypnosis was.
Yes, it was extremely powerful.
And what is regression?
Regression is basically, that's another thing. That's the same thing what she did. She took me back in time.
Okay, so regression is the result of her hypnosis.
Yes.
Okay, and what else did she do?
There was quite a few techniques she taught me. There was, what do I say? Uh, there was energies. She taught me different ways and where I could wash out negative energies and build up positive energies within myself. And energies is something I believe in again. So I think everything in this world is composed of some energy or the other.
Okay, and her healing and her therapy helped you a lot.
It helped me. It did help me a lot. Yes.
Compared to psychotherapy, which
I wasn't exactly. I did go to a few counselors. I went to psychiatrists, but I didn't exactly go for psychotherapy.
okay.
So when I was going to a psychiatrist back then, I every week I'd have an appointment to see how I was doing, but there was no improvement in any of the medication I was given. And this was just before my final suicide attempt. So yeah, it would basically, there was no improvement. And I went for 4 appointments. After that, she was like, okay, I'm probably a danger to society and I need to be admitted into a psychiatric ward.
That's what the psychiatrist said.
Yes.
Okay.
And my parents were like, well, let you know. Well, let's see. I don't think that's a good option. And I didn't go into it. So yeah. I come back out into society, right? And people start bombing me with so many questions. Like, okay, what happened? Why do you do this? Did this actually happen? Did that actually happen? I was like, I think a person who's come out through all this trauma should be given some space. And if that person wants to talk about it, that person will talk about it. And you shouldn't actually push that person to talk about it, because there are a lot of conflicting thoughts that's going around in that person's head. And you're just, adding more into it. So, yeah. And speaking of those personalities, how I helped overcome them or whatever. So, for me, these personalities were like, again, waves. You get taken by the sea. The more you struggle, the more you drown. The more I fought these things, the more stronger they got. I realized, like, okay, I am exhausting myself fighting these personalities here, because they just kept getting stronger. Nothing affected them, but I was just getting drained out. I was completely drained out. There was times where I'd sleep for 2 hours a day. I'm actually for an entire 2-3 months I was sleeping for 2 hours a day. I couldn't sleep for more than that. I was always up, and even if I was sleeping, my brain, it was like my mind was awake, but my body was just dead. And I started lucid dreaming. I started having hallucinations.
Okay, so you were lucid dreaming for only 2 hours.
I was lucid dreaming for around 2 hours.
Okay, so you had complete
2 to
control.
3 hours max.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So in your dreams, you had complete control over what was happening.
Yes, I had complete control of my dream.
But then you would wake up, and in reality, you had no control.
In reality, it would depend on who was waking up.
Okay.
It would depend if it was me waking up, if it was someone else waking up.
Okay.
So yeah.
Can you describe these different personalities? Did they have faces? Did they have names?
I couldn't say they have faces as such. Names, I can't exactly recall, but 2 of them I remember. One was Jared and the other one was Elena. That's the only 2 names I remember right now. So yeah.
And how were they behaving towards you?
So I'll tell you what. One personality was extremely angry all the time. Bad temper. Wanted to show dominance. One was extremely sad. The other one was a kid, basically a 7-year-old kid. That's what I can say. I'd just be happy with small things happening here and there. And the other personality would always be driving me to kill myself. So, yeah, that's what. So, when I was trying to kill myself, there was no looking back. When I did it, I did it. Even if I wanted to stop, I couldn't stop.
Because that personality had taken over.
That's what it felt like to me, yes. I couldn't stop at all. I'm like, stop, but no, I couldn't.
But now, as a result of that therapy, do you think you have a better control over your own body?
Yes, I do, so much.
And what has happened to those other characters?
I have no idea. My last attack was around somewhere during the lockdown time last year. That's probably almost a year ago, a little less than that, where I just fell to the ground and I'm just holding my head. I'm like, stop. And I'm just screaming, stop. I can't take this anymore, because all these personalities just came gushing back and they were screaming. and I was at my cousin's place. I was out on the terrace when this happened. Then I go back into his room, and he's like, and I'm crying. I'm crying a lot. It's like, what happened? I'm like, dude, I can't take this anymore. Like, what's happening? I'm like, they're all screaming. They're all screaming in my head, and that screaming felt so natural that I felt like his voice was masked out by the screaming that was going on.
Okay, that's how loud it was.
That's how loud it felt in my head. Yes.
Okay. And did you recover from that? What happened right after that?
He helped me calm down. I calmed down for a while, but after that, for a week or two, I could still hear whispers. Eventually, that's because I was fighting it again. That's why I said the more I kept fighting it, the stronger they got. So I just had to let go of whatever I was feeling. I just had to let go. I had to just sink in. I had to start listening. So when I started listening, I realized each of these personalities that were around have some sort of weakness. Okay. Now the cool part is, I probably do have this personality somewhere, but they've not shown up. But I've also developed attributes from all these personalities. I've developed a few attributes here, a few attributes there, and I've just taken it to my own advantage. And that was something I thought I'd never be able to do. And so, yeah, I was diagnosed with depression, or diagnosed with bipolar disorder, or diagnosed with DID. So bipolar disorder, my mood swings were immense. I'd have my highs, I'd have my lows, and they were like poles apart. It was really bad. Highs would be like super high, lows would be like super low. So it kept happening, and yeah, that's how it kept going on.
You told me that after your fifth attempt and your final attempt, you would go out and people would walk up to you and give you advice on how to get out of depression. And I'm assuming you also had to interact with older relatives of yours.
Yes, I did.
Okay, how did these interactions go about?
There were people who came to me and told me, just like, be fine, you'll be fine. Just think you're fine, you'll be fine. Just snap out of it, you'll be fine. That's like telling a person on a wheelchair, get up and walk. That wasn't the thing. And I think a lot of people in this society do not understand how it is exactly to go through depression. It is extremely hard because you cannot think. It takes a lot of years of experience to live with depression. Okay, some people who have depression, maybe it'll just go away. Some people who have depression live with it, but it takes experience to, live with it, to overcome it, to make sure it doesn't affect your common processes in life. So maybe one thing I've learned when I'm living with depression is to be proactive. Now, I've had instances where I've had anxiety attacks, and my anxiety attacks were so bad that I'd feel paralyzed. Two instances I was taken to the hospital where the left side of my body was paralyzed due to anxiety attacks and was put on a nebulizer. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think about anything. I was just there. I thought I was going to die. And yeah, so, when I know that this thing's going to happen, I can feel sometimes, I'm just standing, I can feel, okay, something going numb in my body. I just start to move around. I start being proactive. So that's the same thing. So when you're depressed, I learned one thing. It's good to be proactive about something. So it might differ from person to person. Like for me, being proactive would probably be, okay, I'll go out for a drive, or I'll, sit and play some games, or listen to music, I'll dance. I'll just be ready, because when I know I have signs, I know signs is going to hit me. Okay. I know when I'm going to feel depressed, and that's when I just, get up and I start doing something that I like before it even gets to me. So that's one thing I've learned, and I think that's one thing people should be taught, because people with depression, they are usually given medications, they're taught about how to get rid of it and all that stuff, but if it doesn't work, they're not taught on how to live with it. Yeah, so I think that's one thing that people, should be educated on. They should be taught on how to live with it and things like that.
How are you managing to live with it?
That's what I said. I try to be as proactive as I can, because I know when my episodes are going to come. I can anticipate them. I just know when they're going to show up.
You said that society doesn't have enough awareness on suicidal tendencies or depression or bipolar disorder. If someone has a family member with any of these issues, what would you advise them?
I would basically advise them not to pressurize them too much, because you can't just go to that person and tell them, see, what's wrong with you? Are you all right? Are you mad? Are you crazy? No, that person's not crazy. That person's probably going through something you guys don't know about yet. I would ask that person to seek professional help, because trust me, professional help does work. It works in various ways, because that's what I told you earlier. I just kept telling people I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, until one day, like, boom, I blew up. So I would basically tell them not to pressurize that person too much. Try to understand what that person is trying to communicate to you. You need to listen to the person. Because usually when there's a conversation going on, conversation is a two-way street. You need to listen and you need to talk. And when there's a conversation going on here, someone's always interrupted. There's going to be a lot of miscommunication that's going to happen. So yeah, I would suggest that that family member listens to what that person is going through, understands it, and if they cannot understand it, go to someone who would, and tell them, okay, this is happening. How do I go about? And make sure that person seeks help. There are so many ways of treating a person with bipolar disorder or depression. For some of them, medicines might work. Some of them it may not. Even the thing about medicines, it's different for everyone again. The trials might take so long. It might take weeks. It might take months. It might take years for you to find your right dose and your right mode of medication. So that's also a long process, and that was something I wasn't going to wait around for. So, and that's just me. For some people, it might work in a few weeks. They might be perfectly fine, and they might just continue with it. So, I'm not against medication. It's just not for me. So, yeah, they can either seek psychological help, like psychotherapy. They can go for therapy. They can go for healing. They can go for counseling. They can go to a psychiatrist. There are a lot of ways to help them go up and about with their life.
Even when you went through the worst of depression, you had this need to help others.
Yes.
And you just couldn't say no to others.
I can't say no to others. I still can't say no to others.
And do people take advantage of
you? A lot of people have, yes. And it's very difficult to say no to others.
Can you give a few examples of how people have taken advantage of you?
Okay. Let's not really talk about that.
Fine,
I think it's all good.
Yeah, we'll skip that.
Yeah.
But this need to help others, and when you finally help someone, you get this sudden boost of adrenaline.
Yes, I do. I feel happy about it. I feel extremely happy about it.
How do you plan on using this technique?
That's what I've thought about. So I'll be in India for a while. I'm going to move out of India. And I want to do my master's in psychology. And there are a lot of masters in psychology. You can specialize in different courses. So the thing for me to do my master's is I need to have a bachelor's in psychology, which I do not have. I know the experience of going through traumas like this, but I do not know the practical aspects. I do not know how it goes about. I mean, I've read books, I've watched TED Talks, and it's given me a basic idea. So I'm just going to do a crash course on my bachelor's, and I'm going to work at the same time and try doing my master's, so that I can help out other people, so that I can have a better understanding. Because right now I can just help you as a friend, I can talk to you as a friend, and I cannot guarantee to make you feel better. And so yeah, I think about even therapists and stuff. I went to so many counselors and stuff, and I felt like I'm just sitting there, I'm like, what is this person talking? This person's stupid. He's not as smart as I am. This person's not even understanding what I'm talking about. And if you're going to a therapist, you need to make sure you can communicate and you have a connection with that therapist. You can bond. You need to make sure you trust that person. And yeah, for me, basically, I had to go through a lot of them to make sure I found the right one. So,
what do you think about your future? Do you think in the future you will be more happier and productive, or do you think such attacks are there's a possibility of such attacks to recur again?
Yeah, so I am not keeping any expectations. Whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to go with the flow. Just going to live with how it's going to go about.
But since you're experienced, do you think it won't be that bad again?
I have experienced it, and it might happen again, and I am not going to say this is my worst experience in life ever. It could be worse than this. It could be worse. I don't know. So when it happens, it happens. I'll try dealing with it. I'll see how it goes about. But just because this one incident or this entire scenario that's happened doesn't mean that it'll never happen again, right? And even if you do not keep expectations in life, something's bound to go wrong sometimes here and there. So if it's bound to go wrong, you just need to find a way to deal with it. And that's one thing I'm going to do.
And did all of these experiences enable you to understand who your real friends are? And did you understand what kind of role did your family play in all of this?
Trust me, I think family is the best thing I ever had during all this. They stepped in. It was like, in a funny way, I think I was like the pampered kid of the family. So yeah, they were actually there for me. I had my family and I had my friends who have become family. And having friends who become family is amazing, trust me. That's something else. That's actually a gift. And I figured out who my true friends were, who've been there for me, who couldn't. I do not blame some of the people who weren't there for me. They were really exhausted. Trust me, when you're dealing with a depressed person, it can be extremely exhausting. It can be extremely exhausting because they will not know exactly what you are going through. All right. They will know, okay, you are probably dealing with something. You are depressed, yes. But they do not know the intensity of it. They do not know how bad it is. And they will try helping you in a way they think is fit, but it may not help you, and you're just spiraling down, and they're draining themselves out completely to help you. And at one point they'll just give up. They're like, I'm sorry, I can't stay. I cannot do this anymore. They're basically like, I think I'm ruining my life trying to do this. So I was like, cool. But some of them did come back. Some of them apologized. They're like, I understood better on how it is going about, because when I went through things like that. So yeah, I have figured out a lot of things. And the thing about this is, I do not regret about anything that happened. I have no regret about anything that happened at all. I am actually happy that it happened, because it's made me a better person. I have learned so many things. I think I've also emotionally matured a lot more as a person just because of all these incidents that happened here. I don't turn back, and I don't look at it and be like, okay, why did I do this? I don't do that at all now. So I'm just there. I'm like, cool, this has happened and it's taught me so much. And I would have never become the person I am today without these incidents. So yeah.
So are you closer to your family and your parents as a result of all this?
Oh yes, I'm closer to a lot of people. And I don't know, we're bonded in so many ways that I never thought I'd bond.
Well, thank you, Canute.
Cool.
For sharing all of your experiences.
Yeah.
This was, I don't know, this was mind-blowing, man.
Thank you.